Welcome to Victoria, the capital city of British Columbia, Canada. It is located on the southern tip of Vancouver Island. It's the second oldest city in Western Canada, so I thought I'd take you with me to visit some of the historical sites in this beautiful city. For our first night in Victoria, I picked this gorgeous bed and breakfast located in the James Bay neighborhood. Previously known as Gatsby Mansion, it was built by William Joseph Pendray in the 1890s to live in with his family. We only stayed one night because I had wanted a place with a kitchen to stay at for the rest of the trip, but I really wanted to experience a night in this historical house. Each room has a different name and a different theme. The room we stayed in was the Notre Dame room. On our first day in Victoria, since we were in the James Bay neighborhood, I took the opportunity to take a little walking tour around. This neighborhood is the oldest neighborhood in Victoria, and you can see lots of heritage houses in the area. Using an online historical walking tour guide, which I'll link in the description, I took a couple of hours to walk along the quiet streets and observe the houses. I had some more time later in the day after completing the walking tour, so I ended up walking to Fisherman's Wharf. Google Maps told me that you could see and feed seals here, but it turns out that that is no longer allowed. It was very quiet when I went, so I wasn't sure if I was just there at the wrong time or if it was related to the pandemic. There were lots of quirky and colorful boathouses there, some of them businesses, and I could see how this could be a bustling area in the summer. In the the evening, I went out to take a look at the lights on the buildings. One thing I really liked in Victoria is all of the lights at night. The Parliament buildings are lit up, the Empress Hotel is lit up, and all of the street lamps give it such a quaint feel. The next day we had to check out of the Pendray Inn, but before we did that, we headed to the dining room for some breakfast, which was included in our stay. You could pick from their menu, which included 2 options of tiered breakfast, among other choices. Later in the day, we checked into our Airbnb, which was located in Chinatown. Like I had mentioned earlier, I wanted to have a kitchen so that we didn't have to eat out for every single meal. I love walking as a way to explore new cities. It really allows me to take the time to look at things, and you never know what you might find. Given our Airbnb location, it was super convenient to explore downtown and the Chinatown area. Once again, I found an online self-guided tour of Victoria's Chinatown, which I'll link in the description, and followed it, which I found very helpful in getting a little bit more context and appreciation for what I was seeing. Victoria's Chinatown is the oldest in Canada and second oldest in North America after San Francisco's. Many Chinese people immigrated to BC when gold was discovered in the Fraser Canyon in 1858. Fantan Alley in Chinatown is a popular spot for tourists to visit. Apparently, it is Canada's narrowest street and named after the Chinese gambling game that was played in gambling dens above the alley. Based on the many photos on Instagram that I have seen of this alley, I would imagine that it is normally quite busy. But luckily, I was here on a weekday morning and it was still quiet. In keeping with the historical theme, I chose to have dim sum at Don Mee, a Chinese restaurant that has been operating in Victoria's Chinatown since 1923, making it almost 100 years old. Photos on the walls would indicate that they have had quite a few celebrity visits over the years. They have cart service, so you can start eating almost immediately by picking what you want when the carts roll around. In the afternoon, I continued back downtown and made a stop in Munro's Books. I thought it looked cool from the outside, and I love bookstores, so I went in. Not only was the building stunning from the outside, but also gorgeous inside. I learned later that the bookstore was co-founded by the Canadian writer Alice Munro and her then-husband Jim. Continuing on my way, I passed by the Fairmont Empress Hotel, another landmark in Victoria. Fun fact, there is a gin distilled in Victoria that is named after this hotel, and it's a beautiful purple color. Don't miss it if you like gin. Finally, I reached my destination, the Parliament Buildings of British Columbia. You can walk right in and get a free guided or self-guided tour. I just took a self-guided tour as the next guided tour wasn't for a while. If you're lucky and the Legislative Assembly is sitting when you visit, you can watch the debates and proceedings in the public gallery. That's what I was able to do when I was there, as there happened to be a second reading for a bill, and it was actually quite intense. Afterwards, I stopped by Thunderbird Park, which was right next to the Royal BC Museum. There are a number of totem poles here, with the centerpiece being the Mungo Martin House, designed by Chief Mungo Martin, or Naka Penkem, who was an artist known for Northwest Coast art. The next day, I headed to Craigdarroch Castle, which was about a 30-minute walk from downtown Victoria. You can take transit, but the weather was nice, so I walked. You can get tickets to go inside, and it's a self-guided tour. The castle was built by coal baron Robert Dunsmuir, who was the richest man in British Columbia at the time of his death. Unfortunately, he didn't live to see the castle completed, but the rest of his family did live in it afterwards. Most of the interiors have been restored to look like what it would have been back when the Dunsmuir family occupied it, but over the years this building has also been used as a military hospital, a college, and a music conservatory, so there is evidence of that in a few rooms. It actually took me an hour and a half to go through it. It was larger than I expected, and there are 4 floors. There is another castle in Victoria called the Hatley Castle, which is related to this one, as one of Robert's sons had lived in it. I didn't get a chance to go visit it this time, but it might be of interest if you like X-Men, as it appeared in the films as Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters. The last historical location we're going to visit is Fort Rod Hill and Fisgard Lighthouse. For this one, we took an Evo and drove about 20 minutes to get there. You'll need tickets for admission. Fort Rod Hill is an artillery fortress that was used between 1895 and 1956 for defending Victoria. Almost all of the structures on the site are original. Unfortunately, many of the rooms were closed off when we went, but it still took us a couple of hours to explore the site. Also located here is the Fisgard Lighthouse, which was the very first lighthouse on the west coast of Canada. You can go inside as well. It's interesting imagining what a lighthouse keeper's life was like.